but
This is what we do on a daily basis, day in and day out, looking at data, trying to figure out what it is that's working in Spokane, Washington, all the way down to Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and seeing how we can really cater to clients to deliver the best information possible to them and the best results to them, and the information back to you through these webinars and through the education. So excited to get into it today.
There we are. Welcome, everybody, to the Strategic SEO Success webinar, partnering with your digital marketing agency. We, of course, are Thaddeus and Evan, and you know us from the HVAC Success Secrets Revealed, but we also have a company called On Purpose Media, where we do websites for home service companies, along with SEO, along with Google Ads, and we're here to share our expertise with y'all. Forgive our aloofness on some of this today. We realized this morning that we probably shouldn't book a webinar the day after coming back from AHR, or any event for that matter. So bear with us as we work our way through what is going to be some great information in terms of what we're going to be chatting about. And so, of course, if you don't know us, if this is your first time ever tuning in, I'm Thaddeus. Evan's on the other side. I'm the better looking of the two. I'm making HVAC sexy again, according to Ben Poole at the HVAC Tactical Awards. So that's me. That's Evan. And we've been doing this for a while. We've been in the digital marketing space for over 4 years, but we're not new to marketing. We've been in the marketing space for each a decade. So over 20 years of marketing experience combined. I hate when people use that, but I just did. So there we go. Over a decade, 2 decades worth of combined marketing experience. Evan was a CSR. I've worked, Comfort Advisor.
CA.
My bad.
Thank you.
Comfort Advisor. My bad. You corrected me. I got it
Not
right
that there's
off
anything
the bat.
wrong. Not that there's anything wrong with being a CSR.
No, absolutely
That's
not.
just not my expertise.
No, I would not think that it would be your expertise. It's a very talented individual that needs to be in the CSR role, and that would not be you. So, like HR, I'm not designed for HR either. But here we are, and I'm excited to dive in. So let's just get right to it. So, by the way, if you are watching this, if you are live, heck, even if you are on Team Replay, if you do have questions, by the way, let's drop those into the comments. Yeah, Eric Thomas, got to drink up lots of water today. Yeah, there is definitely quite a bit of water today. Involve lots of vitamins, getting that taken care of after the AHR Expo. So if you do have questions, by the way, while we're doing this webinar, hit them in the chats. Do leave those messages down there. If you're listening on to this Team Replay and you do have some questions, drop them in there too, guys. We look at those comments. We want to make sure that we get you the information. At the end of the day, when you look at what we're going to be accomplishing here, partnering with your digital marketing agency, we want to be able to give you, the home service providers, the home service experts and contractors, strategic insights into your SEO so you can win in Google with your marketing agency. Now, obviously, I'm going to be selfish and say I would much rather you work with us and we take care of this for you. But if you're working with somebody else, these are some great insights for you. At the end of the day, if you're winning, we're happy. That's all that matters for us in the grand scheme of things. So in terms of the agenda, what we're going to dive into today, these are just going to be some of the things. I'm sure we're probably going to get squirreled and off topic, especially if questions are coming in. We'll talk about effective communication, working with your digital agency back and forth, what that looks like, some of the feedback and the impact that it can have on you and your business, as well as the marketing agency side of things too. There's something key in that, is that it's not just a one-way street. This is a two-way street in terms of communication. I'm going to really like to dive into some of the data insights that are going to come out of it, plus some actionable SEO reports. Those are some good things, but also breaking down some of the SEO reports too, so they don't sound like confusing jargon to you. If it does sound confusing to you, hey, maybe you might know these too. Great. But we want to break some of that down. And then the last part, diving into the goal alignment, making sure that there's congruency with you and the marketing agency.
You got it. And yes, Eric, lots of water today. Could also use one of your pick-me-ups or even one of Tersh's, a little Zip Fizz or something like that today, because the last couple of days was exhausting. But regardless, one of the things that lights me up, one of the things that lights that up is giving back, adding value. So I'm going to give you everything I got today.
All right, we'll leave it all on the field. And those Zip Fizzes, let me tell you, man, I had one of those back in Service World Expo, and I was literally sitting in Tersh and Josh's message, and like my heart was going like this. I thought I was going to jump out, and I was like, Jesus, I got to walk. Like, I feel like I go around a marathon right now.
Right.
They're good times. They're good things. So, but don't worry, we'll hydrate for you, Eric. All right, so let's dive into the first topic, Evan. And the first one in we're going to really want to get into is the effective communication. And I look at effective communication as a two-way street. And I've beat my chest on this numerous times that if you have a company, and this just doesn't apply to a digital marketing agency, this applies to really any service company for that matter, anybody that provides a service to an individual, that if you have an average product and average communication, you're going to have average retention results and average long-term clients, right? If you have average product and above average communication, you're going to have a greater retention results and a greater propensity for individuals to stick with you. If you have an above average product and above average communication skills, man, you're doubling down, and that's where you're going to win long term. And this is why communication, in my opinion, is so effective. So,
Correct.
in your opinion, Evan, from an SEO partnership, digital marketing agency, home service company, what does effective communication look like for you?
I think it starts with openness and just an understanding from both sides of what your goals are and what the expectations are. If you don't have clear expectations up front and a roadmap and how to get there, then everything that's unspoken, one person's not meeting it. And you had no idea that that's what they wanted out of this relationship. So I don't care if this is a business partnership. I don't care if this is employee to owner or manager, or if this is your vendor partnership. You need to have clear expectations up front. From there, having that clear dialogue and constantly coming back to those expectations and those agreements to making sure that you've got clear communication back and forth. Is it happening regularly? Right. If you're on, a basic SEO program, I think a quarterly communication of an actual call makes sense. You don't need to be having constant monthly calls when there's very little that needs to be done. But when it comes to anyone that's in a really competitive market, or you've got a really in-depth SEO program that's happening, you need to be having monthly communication that is an actual call. You're running through reports, you're looking at the data, you're looking at the calls that are coming in. And from a business owner side of things, one of the things that's really helpful for a marketing company is the questions that are getting asked constantly by customers, because now we can create content that's going to address and answer those questions up front. There's a great book called They Ask You Answer, and they talk about this exact topic. What are the main questions? What are the main concerns that are constantly coming into your business? And then how can we create content that's going to address those up front on the website so that people can go there and they can find that information? Because most people aren't going to talk about those things, especially when it comes to cost related questions. Most businesses don't even address it. So if you can get ahead of your competitors by addressing that up front, it's going to go a long way for your SEO strategies.
No, and I love that too. The cost related questions, how much does an AC repair cost in city name? And you don't have to give actual amounts of your pricing online if you don't want to. Although I believe that somebody should start looking at something like a contractor commerce or equivalents to be able to shout out Tall Paul, to be able to have some of that information out there. But it's a key thing because people are searching that. One of the key themes that I noticed in AHR in the training aspect of things, from manufacturers down to distributors down to the contractors, was that the educated buyer is out there. They are doing research. They are finding information. They are gathering this data before they make a decision oftentimes. And so if you can give them that data, you can give them that information, guess what? Now they're going to be landing on your website even more, and the propensity of them calling you is even greater. So,
Correct. Well, and
in,
that's exactly what they talk about in They Ask You Answer too, right? Is when you're giving the information of how much does a new air conditioner cost for a 2,000 square foot home, a marketer's favorite answer is it depends. And that should be your favorite answer too, because that's really the case. It could be $5,000 for a builder grade product that isn't properly installed, that didn't get any ductwork done to it. It's just an easy change out. Maybe they didn't even measure the ductwork. This technician may not even have insurance and proper guarantees and warranties behind any of their products. So you're talking the cheapest end all the way up to $20,000-$30,000 for a new system, because we've got to change out the ductwork and do all of those things as well. We do a blower door test. We do all these other things. So now you're laying out, well, why is it that you might be on the higher end of this spectrum, and why is it that you might be on the lower end of this spectrum? And that's your content. That's your blog post. That's one of the things that we love to do with our clients is lay out that cost if clients are open to it. We're not going to force anyone to do it. We encourage it. We love to talk about it because customers are searching it. And if you can provide the answers better than any of your competitors, people are going to call you.
Right. So in terms of that, it actually kind of lays into the next slide. Key communication strategies for home service businesses. In looking at the questions that people ask, and how can an agency such as us or the home service company get that information from a customer, or from and I'm talking customer, by the way, SEO agency, customer being you, the contractor, right? That's what I'm referencing.
Correct. So 2 ways. 1, call tracking should be set up for your business regardless. If your SEO company isn't doing it, if your paid ads company isn't doing it, I believe that they should have their own call tracking with some sort of transcription. And I mean, with AI now, the ability to look for certain keywords, look for certain things that are measured, that are spoken in the call, and then giving a lead score to that. That's something that we're rolling out with all of our clients right now. Is proper lead score attribution based on the verbiage that's used from customers when they're calling in. I think that's incredibly important. But on a bare minimum, giving even access to your Service Titan, your House Call Pro, your Sarah, Field Edge, whatever your software is, if you can give this information back to your marketing company, at least on a read-only format, then they're going to have access to the details of what's happening in your business. They can see that you've got calls on board, jobs booked, and you don't need to be communicating back and forth constantly. They can see where those jobs are being booked and what the average tickets are in those areas. It's one of the features I love in Service Titan. You scroll to the bottom, pick your date range, boom, these are the zip codes that are transmitting into the greatest amount of sales volume for your business. It's an easy indicator. Now we can build content in those areas to try and attract even more customers. Now we can look at adding in a second Google business profile and that kind of thing, which we're going to talk about here in a bit too. But as far as the communication practices, it needs to be open, back and forth. There needs to be trust built there between your marketing company and your business.
Right. And you look at that trust, that's a key word, right? And sadly, there's a lot of shady digital marketing companies that are out there that aren't doing this, and that's eroded this trust. It's not exclusive, by the way, to digital marketing. Guess what? HVAC, same thing. Plumbing, same thing. Gender builders, same thing. Doesn't really matter what industry you're in. There's shady people out there. The whole truck on the truck and undercutting prices, and I can do it cheaper. And then you see those install jobs in some of the Facebook groups, and they're absolutely dog shit, right? So like they're it's not just, by the way, exclusive to us. It's everywhere. But that also leads me into looking at, okay, feedback impact, or the impact of feedback in terms of having this dialogue back and forth, because now you're having this conversation, you're trying to establish trust, and you're trying to create this dialogue and this feedback. And so I look at it saying, okay, well, enhancing your SEO campaigns through constructive feedback and constructive criticism, and again, two-way street. So looking at having this strategic SEO success on this topic of constructive feedback, how can a contractor give constructive feedback to their agency when it comes to keeping SEO in mind, right?
Well, I mean, it relates to any problem that exists in your business, and it starts with identifying what is the actual problem. What is it that we're lacking on here, right? If there's no jobs on the board, okay, well, what is the problem? Is it the phone's not ringing? Is it the quality of leads that are coming in? Or is it something on the operational side of things that we're not doing efficient enough, right? And so diving in and uncovering what it is that's actually the problem there. We had a communication with a client where they were complaining about the job board not being full. We look in their call tracking, and that 74.3% of their calls in the last week went missed. Now, even if they got a chance to call back each one of those customers, the reality is that a large percentage of them have already gone on to the next company or are calling them instead. So making sure that you've got someone that's answering the phone is incredibly important. Now, let's say that there is all of your calls getting answered, and that is a standard practice. You've got a proper lead flow and call through system so that someone is always answering that call. I remember the podcast we had with Cassie Pound, right? Her phone line was the last one, and it started ringing in the middle of our podcast because every one of her other 7 CSRs were already on the phone. It was a busy day for them, right? But you have a proper lead flow through system so that every call is getting answered every single time.
No,
From there,
makes it.
go
No,
ahead.
keep going. No, keep going.
Oh, now from there, okay, is it lead quality? Well, let's dive into the calls that we're getting. What's being said on them? How long are they lasting? How long is our CSR on the phone with them? What areas are they coming from? Is it a service area issue? What's the issue there? Now we can dive in and we can solve that. Is it a lead, just call volume issue? Great. Now that's a different conversation. And now we can address that. Is it weather assisted or is it weather dependent? That's another thing, right? And we can start to dive in and identify problems. Is search volume down? That's something that happened throughout this past year in 2023. Is search volume decreased across the board? People were searching for it less. And there's a variety of issues and reasons as to why that happened. People went back to work in the workplace as opposed to working from home. They were using their system less compared to the previous 2 years. We got accustomed to really easy times within the home services space where, that's a great question, Tony. We're going to get to that in a second. Where people were working from home, 15 years, system replacement since the previous time in the HVAC space anyways, when there was the largest shipment of product was in 2005. So it was the perfect storm that 2020 was going to be a massive year regardless. And it was. 2021, the carryover. 2022, there was still carryover. 2023, we finally saw that reduction in search volume. So all those things led to a perfect storm where last year was supposed to be a down year in terms of call volume, and it was. So how do you maximize that is important. Now, Tony asked a question here.
Just before you're going to cue that up, but the topic that we're on is the dynamics, understanding local SEO dynamics for home services, right? And this is a key thing. Is what he's saying here is, okay, what are some of the trends? What are some of the demands? What are we seeing in here? And so, okay, well, if search volume is just down across the board, and you're waiting for your marketing company to magically make calls appear, well, there's only a certain pool of calls, right? And so understanding that dynamic is that there's going to be ups and downs in the search cycle for repair versus installs, and in making sure that those are some of those dynamics that are conversed back and forth, by the way, between both parties. And so it's not necessarily making it and saying this is an excuse on why this digital marketing agency has so low of call volume. They could be just doing a shit job, right? And you're not fighting for a percentage of those calls. But when the percentage of the calls is, the pool of calls are down, naturally everything goes down a little bit. And so making sure that you're also understanding those dynamics to make sure that they're not fleecing you.
Yeah. Well, and that was some of the fun stats that I looked at last year was, we had clients that were concerned about call volume, and we looked at the metrics, we looked at the data, and they were working with us for over a year at that point. So we were able to compare month over month, year over year, monthly data. Well, the search volume, the amount of impressions that they showed up for was in some cases down. I remember there was one client in particular, they were down 63%, the amount of impressions that they got, but their call volume was only down 6% compared to the year before. So their rankings went up. They were showing up more frequently for the searches that people were wanting their services for. They were getting more calls than they were compared to the year previously in terms of an impression share percentage, but the amount of times that they showed up alone was down simply because there was less people searching for it.
Mm-hmm.
So Tony's question here, because we did bring up the average call length, he said, what length of time, he corrects himself in the second comment, what length of call do you consider a valid incoming phone call? So when we're measuring any type of Google campaign, we don't consider anything a conversion unless it's at least 40 seconds. Now, some marketers will say 60 seconds, some will say 30 seconds. The reason we went with 40 is because when we're thinking of the psychology of a buyer who clicked on a Google ad, they are impatient enough that they're not even willing to scroll on the page. So they want a service now. Well, chances are if your job board is booked up for the next 2 or 3 days, they're going to say, no, thanks, I'm going to call the next company. And so that's why we set it at 40 seconds, because they might still be a good customer. It just wasn't the right timing in terms of getting them to be able to book. So I think the first question I ask is, one, what is a qualified lead? Service you provide in the area you provide it. That's it. That is what a qualified lead is into the business. And then from there, a good average length of time, Tony, I like to see it at least 3 minutes, because that's going to tell us that a large percentage of the calls that came in ended up being quality leads that we got on the board.
Perfect. Great question. Great answer. And shifting into some of the, I mean, we're talking some data numbers here, right? And some data insights. I just like how sometimes things just flow naturally. It's great. It's almost like we put effort into planning this for everybody. Uh, data
Almost.
insights in looking at what somebody can extrapolate from within inside of the SEO campaign from a home service contractor. That's a key thing. We're talking right now in 2024. There's so much data that's out there. There's so much that somebody can glean by looking and analyzing those things. So if we were I mean, I don't know if you wanted to get into those specific search ranking factors, or if you want to talk about some other data aspects first.
Yeah, let's get right into that, because that's, I mean, at the end of the day, what is it that people care about? They want the phone to ring. Well, in order for the phone to ring, these are the things that Google is telling you and other marketing companies are telling you. So this comes from Whitespark. They released this in March of 2023. It's going to come out and be very, very similar for 2024. I can promise you that. There are some tweaks to it in terms of, and there aren't even tweaks in terms of this. There's tweaks within these that are kind of sub factors. So, for example, for the local Pathfinder, the GBP signals or GMB signals, Google changed the name of it from Google My Business to Google Business Profile. 32% is the weight that is placed on whether or not your business is going to show up in the map pack. Okay. Within that, one of the features that changed in November of this past year was if your business hours are closed when it is the time that is the person searching. So if your business closed at 6 and the person is searching at 6:04, your business is less likely to show up at that time. This was something that we learned because we had reports that were running, the search grid reports, right? Where it shows your map pack rankings.
Say that 10 times fast.
Right. And especially after talking for 4 days straight. And all of a sudden, some of our clients, their grids just went completely red. And we, of course, that's a huge alarm system for us. And we looked at it. We're trying to figure it out. We're auditing their profiles. We rerun the report 6 days later, and it's right back to where it was before with improvements from the month before. So like, well, what the shit? What happened? Like, we barely made any tweaks. Why is it all of a sudden showing up? And then we started diving in, doing some more research. Sure enough, that was one of the algorithmic changes that Google made in November, was changing it based on your hours. This has always been a factor when it came to the LSA ads that show up at the very top of the Google search results, but it was never a ranking factor when it came to the map pack. Now it is. So looking at, do you have 24 hours on your business profile? By the way, I highly recommend don't put that on there unless you have someone who's going to answer the phone, because we've seen it happen before, either with clients or past clients or other businesses that we've talked to, where they've got 1-star reviews on their profile simply because someone called and you didn't answer the phone. They said they were open 24 hours and we called them at 8:00 at night and nobody answered the phone. And so now customers get pissed and they leave a 1-star review. It's not worth it if you're not going to have someone that answers the phone. So make sure you've got an after hours answering service at the very least, someone who can answer the phone and talk to this customer and get them booked into your job board. But yeah, having your profile listed as 24 hours is something that's going to make a difference in the upcoming year. On-page signals, this is your website, just making sure that everything's dialed in there, everything's clean, everything makes sense. The review signals, this is the biggest thing that contractors have a control over. Generating reviews, it's still important today. It's not only a ranking signal, but it's also a social signal. If you're showing up number 2 or number 3 on the map pack, but you have 700 reviews compared to the number 1 business, which has 100 reviews, chances are you're still going to get that click and that call because you have more social proof that people have used you in the past and they've had a good experience with you. The link signals, this is something where it's other websites around the internet linking back to your website. Behavioral signals, because every website has Google Analytics now, Google knows whether or not people are coming to your website and then bailing right away, or if they're coming to your website and going to a couple different service pages, if they go to your contact us page and they fill out a form, Google knows all of these things. So the better your website is set up to convert and interact with a customer and get them to stay on your page, the more likely it is that you're going to continue to move up in the rankings. This is why having a great website is still important today. Citation signals is something that's gone down over time. So these are the directories that exist across the internet for anyone that's had like a Yext type service in the past. That is a citation based product, not one that I recommend, simply because they build it once, and then as soon as you stop paying them, they take them all down. It's much better to have them built and they're going to stay permanently. And then the personalization, right? How different is your site compared to other sites? And you see a lot of these translate to your organic ranking factors as well. They're very, very similar. So again, if you just do things the right way, you put out great content, you educate consumers, you have a smooth website that loads fast, all of these things are going to translate into you ranking higher, getting more customers. And as they say, the rich get richer. This is why, because you offer a better experience to customers, both online and offline.
Oh, great points. And the user experience is a key point in that too, because again, that's what Google cares about, right? And we'll talk about that in a following webinar about the website and the user experience and how that translates into rankings. That's an entirely different conversation and an entirely different topic. So I did want to mention that it is important well, we'll tease our next webinar at the end. So make sure you subscribe to that one, because that's where that's going to be super, super important. But this is the reality, is that there are a lot of things that go involved in this, in understanding that it's just not one particular thing. One person might tell you, oh, it's just your website. Another person might tell you, well, it's just your links. Another person might tell you, well, it's all about reviews. Somebody might say, well, reviews don't matter, right? There's opinion in it, but these are some data and factual numbers. And I remember seeing ones, I believe it was SEMRush Academy had ones that were 2022 or 2021 that were fairly similar to this. Now these have adjusted.
The
with
percentages adjust.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember review signals, it was like 11% or something like that. Now it's up to 16%.
Right.
Somewhere around there. Don't hold me on those exact numbers, but they matter, right? The other thing that's super important here, and I like Jason Julian's comment here,
I was just
reviews
going to say
matter, right?
And that's someone who in their market who
Yeah.
has 3 or 4 times as many reviews as his next closest competitors. It's
Something
not
like
even
that.
close, right?
Something like
And
that.
when we look at his search grid, it dominates. So
Greens all across the board, so green lights. But you think about reviews. Here's what this does for not just for SEO. I mean, obviously we see that in there, but think about the user and the conversion aspect of things. If your profile shows up and there's 3 profiles that they're seeing, one of them, I mean, could be 4, because one could be paying and could be sponsored up there. But if there isn't one, then there's 3, right? If there's 3 that are on there and you're listed with 20 reviews, somebody else is listed with 150, and another person is with 300, you know where those people are going to be calling first? The people with 150 and 200 and 300. Okay. They're not going to go to the ones that are with 20. It's the same thing. I mean, sometimes when they see like 7,000 Google reviews and 750 and 300, they might not quite go to the 7,000 review, because they're like, oh, big business. Not saying there's anything wrong with that. I would definitely love for you to keep going and see if you can break that barrier. But that's what's important for the consumer, is knowing and understanding that. And by the way, I know everybody shoots for 5 stars. Yeah, sometimes a 4.7 or 4.8 or even a 4.9 average rating is better converting than a 5-star.
yeah,
So it shows that you're human,
better.
right? So
Yeah.
interesting stat from you. So here's the other part. I know we talked about the proportion of clicks for search engine results and the result type. Walk us through this. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger on our screen.
Yeah.
I'll make us a little bit smaller here. So
So essentially, if you're looking at a search term like AC repair near me, and let's say you're in a city where there's 1,000 searches a month for AC repair, well, 138 of those clicks are going to be on the local service ads, clicking right at the very top, right? So it's important to make sure that you're staying on top of your local service ads account. We can have a whole nother webinar just on that topic itself, but you want to make sure that you're showing up there. Below that is your Google ads. Okay, this is the PPC. You're paying per click every time somebody clicks on you. That's where those come in. 110 people are clicking on those ones every single month. Okay. 2% are clicking on the map. For some reason, people still like directions to places to see how close they are. But There's 20 people that'll click on that one. 288 are clicking on the map results. Okay. The large portion of those aren't even coming through to your website. They are just calling you. This is why the map rankings are so important to SEO and to your business, is because it drives phone calls back to your business. Not only is it the second highest in terms of the percentage of clicks on the page, but it's the one that is a driver of phone calls. You need to get focused on that. There are some ranking factors in there, like proximity, how close you are to the person that's searching. That is a ranking factor on there. The hours, we already talked about that. How is your business open or not open? Reviews, we've touched on that a lot as well. Making sure that all the data matches what it is that's on your website, right? Is your name, address, and phone number on the map pack results the exact same as what it is on your website and on your Yelp page and on your Better Business Bureau profile page and your MapQuest results page? Nobody's going to MapQuest anymore, or very few people, but having that data synced and making sure that it's all accurate is important. And then
So what's MapQuest?
still a reliable result. And actually, so MapQuest and Apple Maps sync back to your Yelp listing. So if you don't have the right information on your Yelp listing, then it's getting pushed out to those results as well. And then 439 people are clicking on the organic search results underneath that. So what is the story that this is telling us? People who are clicking on the ads are doing it because it's urgent. I've got a problem now. I don't have the time to look through and read reviews and do any of that research. I'm just assuming that if you're willing to pay for me to call you, that you're probably going to be able to service me. The people who are taking the time to go down and look at the map results and look at your reviews and click on that, or that are looking at the organic results, it's seen as a trust signal. If Google trusts your business enough to put you on here and you didn't just pay to be here, chances are you can take care of me. And I'm the type of buyer who's going to do my research. I'm the type of buyer who wants to make sure I'm taken care of, and I'm willing to pay for the value that I'm going to get from that. So not only is it important to understand from a marketing perspective where your leads are coming from, but also from a sales perspective, also from a CSR perspective. How are you handling that call? Do you have whisper messages set up on your phone lines? Do you have an alert that pops up as to where this call came from? Now, whether they're existing customer or not, if they clicked on a Google ad, chances are they're coming to you because they want it done now, and you need to use language that is applicable to that.
Great insights.
Thanks.
Oh, yeah. Role of data shaping SEO form services. Well, I think that's been asked and answered. Unless you wanted to wrap up any other last part of the role of data before we get into actionable SEO reports and walking through some of the information from that.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's talk about AI, right? The reality is that AI is playing a big part in home service businesses today. From being able to generate content, right? You can write your own blog posts through AI if you really wanted to. I highly recommend, if you are going that route and you want to do your own SEO, or you have someone in-house that's doing it, or you have a marketing company that's doing it, making sure that they're leveraging AI, not using it as a crutch, meaning it shouldn't be writing 100% of your content for you, copy, paste, done. You need to have that human editing that happens in there, and you need to make sure that the language is applicable. The average North American reads at a 5th grade level. AI is writing at a college grade level. So if you don't go in there and make those tweaks so that it feels like you're talking to me as a consumer, then chances are it's going to go over their head and it's not going to be applicable. And then that behavioral signal is going to get impacted. Right. So, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was listening to talk radio on the way home last night from the airport. And it was actually talking about ChatGPT, but it was actually lawyers. So there's actually been one documented case so far. It was in Vancouver, and there was a few in the US, but they were, Canadian radio. So they're talking about it where a paralegal and a lawyer were using ChatGPT to write their legal brief. They didn't fact check it. They had the whole thing written. They went into court, and the other lawyers found out that they used it. They looked into the data, the accuracy of the information, and it was actually incorrect. And so now there's this precedent that was set that, I mean, obviously the lawyer was pretty upset by this, was crying in court, went out of there because they were called out for using AI with incorrect data. So that's
Right.
just a caveat. And I was like, oh man, I got to remember this nugget because I'm probably going to ride that one hard a few times just to make sure that what you're outputting from ChatGPT is accurate.
Yep. Absolutely. Well, and then even if it's not from GPT, even if it's from your marketing company, if they're writing blogs for you, are you going back and just reading through it, skimming it, and providing feedback to them? Again, this comes back to the beginning of the webinar with how do you have proper communication with your marketing company, giving them the information and the insights. I mean, you're the expert when it comes to the home services space, the home service business that you run. Are you providing them with the right feedback and the right information? They're doing their absolute best to do all the research so that they understand it as best as they can. But if you're also working with just a local generalized agency, which I know a lot of companies do, they value that proximity factor of I can go down the street and talk to my marketer, or I can go have coffee with them, or I can go have lunch with them. Well, all of that is important. If they don't understand your industry, that communication needs to be extremely strong. You need to put in even more effort to make sure that they understand the services that you offer and the business that you're in.
Yeah, great points. And I remember though, there was one person that I can't remember the exact specifics of it. You had sales call from it, and so I'm going to paraphrase some of the information, and you can clean up what I missed or what I misspoke on. But they were talking about, we were asking them about their average tickets and what their average install was, what their average service was, what their blended rates are, what their turnover rate was, what their booking rates were. And they're like, well, I don't need to know that data. I don't need to share that with you. Your job is to bring me leads. But the part of it is the bigger conversation is, does that person understand the industry? Do they understand the nuances? Do they know your business to be able to help if they need it? Because again, you're coming from data all over the place. If they've got 30 clients, 50 clients, 100 clients, 200 clients, well, the data that they can pull can be helpful to you and your business and helping guide you to hit your goals. Key
Correct.
part.
And I mean, on an SEO perspective, that information isn't as necessary. Average ticket, average install, turnover rate, that kind of thing, because we're going to try and get content written about all of those services so you can get calls for all of those services. But when we're talking about a pay-per-lead strategy, pay-per-click, LSA ads, anything like that, if you have a service that you don't have a high average ticket on, you don't have a high average turnover on, you usually send out the greener technicians or the techs that are not as great at selling and diagnosing other issues, asking greater questions with the customer to understand their system, their lifestyle, their comfort levels, their allergies, their circumstances, then you probably shouldn't be running those ads to those keywords, right? And I use the example all the time. We had a client, their average ticket on a repair call was $300. They were turning over those calls about 1 in 18. On the maintenance side of things, their average ticket was over $2,000. Why? Because the maintenance tech that they had running the calls and running tune-ups had kids that had problems with asthma and breathing, and they had mold in their home before they discovered what it was that was causing a lot of these breathing issues in their home. Well, they put in the IAQ system. What does that do for them? Provides more conviction when they're selling IAQ. So they had a higher average ticket on those maintenance calls, right? That kind of data matters when you're talking about PPC, because if I'm going to spend $150, $200, $300 to get a book call, where am I going to get that call from? Who would I rather give it to? I'd rather be sending out a maintenance tech to go run a tune-up in this business as opposed to a repair tech that's going to go and get a $300 repair ticket.
Makes sense. It's the data to be able to help shape the marketing. In terms of data and shaping marketing, reports are one of those things that marketing companies love to send, us included. We're not, and by the way, for those of our clients that are listening, our reports are about to drastically change here, coming up with some of the things that we're working on. But looking at actionable SEO reports, I always look at saying, okay, well, let's talk about extracting and interpreting SEO report insights. I don't know if you wanted to share your screen. I knew I need to walk through a couple things, but did you want to first talk about interpreting some of the SEO reports? And by the way, I'm going to say this, is that all SEO reports can be a little bit different depending on what your agency is sending you, and depends on what they're looking at. So there's a caveat out there that we're going to go based off of what we believe is being sent to you.
Yeah. So, I mean, a couple things that we'll talk about really quick. One is the map pack rankings and that search grid, because I know a lot of companies will use that. By the way, if your company's not using that and you want a free report, reach out to us. We'll do that marketing analysis. We'll send you the search grid so you can see what your company is doing and how you're showing up. I think it's important because you need to know from an SEO perspective, where are you showing up on the map rankings? And then from an organic perspective, how much traffic is coming through the website? Are you looking at Google Analytics for that? I think a lot of the technical jargon isn't necessarily relevant for most home service businesses. What's important is making sure that you've got calls and you've got leads, right? If you know those two numbers, or conversions, oftentimes they're called from a marketing company. You can look at those two data insights there and then just start to compare from that. If only 10% of the conversions are becoming book calls, well, now you can have a conversation on that. If you've got 20% or 30% or 40%, now it's a different conversation, right? But looking at just that number alone, I think is going to give a lot of companies the ability to look at, how can we improve? The thing I like about both of these reporting tools is that they're relatively inexpensive. So if you wanted to just buy them for yourself, so you could own your own data and just schedule those reports to run for you, great. The second one I'm going to show you is on SEMRush, and you can set up a free account with SEMRush and just take a look at your business and how you're showing up online. So let's see if this works here. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
All right, cool. So this is for a company. I don't know if we've got permission to say the name or not. Do we?
Was it the individual that we chatted with earlier?
Yeah.
Or about earlier? Yeah. His words were, "I'm used to being used."
He is well weathered from it. So this is Billy Go down in the Dallas-Fort Worth area up in Grapevine. We were wanting to use a neutral company, one that we have a great deal of respect for, one that I know has put a tremendous amount of focus on SEO and has some pretty solid SEO results. So that's why I wanted to pull them up and show them. So this is the map pack grid rankings. Essentially what these reports are telling you is, if you're sitting in your living room down in Bedford, right, where are you showing up on the map if someone searches for a specific keyword, or Westlake, or Copal, or Grapevine, right? And you can see Billy Go, they're ranking number 1 in Grapevine. Why? Because this is where their location is. The closer you are to the location, the higher you're going to rank. And then it starts to spread out from there. If you're sitting at the is that the DFW airport? It looks like it. You're probably going to find Billy Go number 1 when you're searching for plumber. Now, here's an important thing to understand. So this is for plumber as the keyword. Their primary category is also listed as plumber. When the business has their primary category listed as a specific service, you will rank higher for that service more than any other service that you offer. So in Billy Go's case, they offer plumbing, heating, and air conditioning. For plumbing, they're ranking half decently. On the average side, they are number 3 for plumbing on this exact grid. The cool thing that I like about Bright Local is that it will also show us the grids of any of the competitors for the exact same search area. So it's one of the reasons that I love the tool. It also shows us what the primary categories are and the additional categories that might be listed for those companies.
Did you by chance mention how far this grid is? I was
So
responding
these
back
points,
to 2 comments.
great. I did not. These points are 2 miles apart, and this is a 7x7 grid. So essentially you're looking at 7 miles, 2x2, 14 miles each way, or in total, 14-mile radius, essentially, right? Is that the right math? I'm tired.
Yeah, about that. That's what I'm
About
thinking.
that.
So, hey,
Cool. And so
if we're wrong, somebody will correct us, I'm sure.
Here's the exact thing that I'm talking about. So this is AC repair now. And this is a company, by the way, that is doing a fantastic job, has a ton of content on their website talking about air conditioning repair. They've got blogs written about it. They've got great service pages written about it. They've got it talked about in their business name, right? It's Billy Go Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning, which, by the way, your business name is a ranking factor. So if you don't have the keywords in your business name, go get a doing business as a DBA written up, change your business name to be that. Now, if you have a DBA before you go and change your name in your Google Business Profile, that is the best way to do it. That's how I would recommend doing it. But making sure that you do have those keywords written into your business name, it is a ranking factor. It is going to make a difference on here. But the primary category is also going to make a massive difference. So when we look at this report now, we can see Billy Go is ranking way down here in terms of an average. Their authority is right on par with everyone above them. Their reviews is higher than most of the businesses that are above them. But the difference is that primary category. These guys have air conditioning repair service. We got one guy as an HVAC contractor, a couple more as HVAC contractor, and then a couple as air conditioning contractor. That primary category is absolutely a huge ranking factor. It needs to be addressed if you have that as a main service within your business. So certain things that have been suggested in the past by companies like Whitespark, which we pulled up their data before, is setting up separate Google Business Profiles for separate services, setting up separate Google Business Profiles for separate locations, and having a physical location, not a region office, not your home address, but a separate physical location that has your branding on it, that is an office. It's a second location where you store equipment, etc. You can start to generate more phone calls by doing these sorts of things. Okay. Changing your primary category depending on the season. You know, if you're in a market like up in Canada where it dips down to -40 in the winter, Fahrenheit, and 95 in the summer, again, Fahrenheit, since most of the audience is American, you know, that is such a wide spread. But being able to switch your primary category from furnace repair service or heating contractor to air conditioning repair service or air conditioning contractor, it's going to make a big difference in your rankings on the map pack itself. Any questions that came up for this that you want me to address?
No, I think it's an important piece, right? And I think people need to understand, the nuances that are going to go involved in this, but also setting up a grid that makes sense. And this
Yeah.
is why I wanted to ask that grid question, because if you set up a 7x7 grid and the spacing is 500 meters apart, well, guess what? It's going to look better. Okay.
Right.
If you set up a bigger grid, it's going to look worse. And so
Correct.
understanding, okay, what is the proximity in that you want to look at serving for your business in your radius? And now I've happened to be in the DFW area and I know roughly where it's at, but they also, I know, go all over the DFW area, right?
Yep.
You look at their board when they're in their office and they've got where their techs live and they want to obviously the efficiency side of things. And another episode, I think Billy's talked about that extensively. And so just knowing that, right? If you're seeing a grid, ask that question to your digital agency. Hey, what is the spacing? What are we looking at from an actual grid? You're showing me a 7x7. If it's at 500 meters, then beware of that. The other part
Right.
is if they don't know what this grid even is. This came up in a Facebook group a couple weeks ago where somebody was questioning their efficiency on their Google business profile. So I sent them a screenshot of this, and then they're like, "Yeah, I showed my current marketing company people this, and they didn't even know what they were looking at." So again, understanding that of what's the data set that the marketing company is looking at, and you don't have to know how to set this up. You don't have to know the intricacies of this, but if you understand the data set and you know enough to be able to know if they're bullshitting you or not,
Right.
that's kind of
Well,
part of
and
it.
and I think that's a great point too. And I want to make sure I address this as well. If you have questions regarding changing your profile name or changing your primary category, do not do it without first consulting your marketing company and talking to them about it. Okay. You need to have those discussions and it needs to go back and forth. I can't tell you how many times it's happened to us where a client's gone into their ads account or they've changed something there, or their Google business profile and they changed something there. And it ends up causing friction with the strategy that we were working on and we had in place. So making sure that you have proper communication, changing your address would be another thing. Don't do that either. Have open lines of communication back and forth, like we talked in the beginning, because it's incredibly important. Everyone needs to be on the same page, rowing in the same direction. If you're rowing one way and your marketing company's rowing backwards, you're just going to spin in circles and you're not moving your business forward. So you need to make sure that you're working together on everything.
Great point. Love that. You mentioned the other tool that you wanted to get into was SEMRush. And
Yes.
SEMRush is a neat one because this is, when you look back at that ranking factors that you showed earlier, one of them is the Google Business Profile or the Map Pack or the Local Findo or GMB or whatever you want to call it. And that's what you're showing is the ranking factors and how you can actually see where you're showing up in that regard. Now, when you come into SEMRush, now we're talking on the other side of that White Spark document that you showed is the local rankings, the local search results when people are going beyond the Map Pack and they're hitting there. So walk us through what we're seeing on this.
Yeah. So with the organic rankings, we'll call them, because some of it is localized and some of it isn't, right? If I'm searching for AC repair near me, that's going to be a local search. But if I'm just searching for why is my air conditioner blowing hot air, completely different results are going to show up, right? So we want to make sure that we're aware of that. So a couple things. One thing you'll see on here is authority score. Most local businesses are not going to get much higher than 30 for an authority score on here. What does this have to do with your rankings? For the most part, fuck all. Just going to be honest with you. It's something that is valuable to know and understand, but we have businesses that have an authority score of 4 and 8 that are outranking businesses that the authority score is way higher than that, simply because the on-page and the technical and the keyword research is better, right? So making sure that all aspects of SEO are working together is important. And over time, their authority score is going to increase based off of those things. Backlinks. This is something that we've heard thrown out a lot in different groups. You know, we need more backlinks. We need to get backlinks created. Yes and no. Backlinks are important. However, they're less important today than they were 5 years ago. The quality of the links is what is important. So getting links from some of your friends in business that are in a similar service, in a similar service area, but they don't offer exactly what it is that you offer. i.e., I'm a plumber, I'm working in Dallas, I got a friend, they operate a home and air, heating and air conditioning business. They have no plans on opening plumbing. We have no plans on opening HVAC. Hey, can I write an article and put it on your site and you can do the same for me? And now you send that link back and forth. That's great. Reaching out to your vendors. Every single person that you have, every line item that you have on your P&L, on your general ledger at the end of the month, reach out to every single one of them and say, hey, if I write you a testimonial, can you give me a link back to my site? It's a really simple, low-hanging fruit thing where most companies will say, absolutely. Bonus points if you can get best air conditioning repair in city or best plumber in city. Now, when you're reaching out to your suppliers, they're probably not going to do that, or manufacturers, simply because they've got so many people in the city that they're dealing with as well. But they will link back at least to your site and just say, hey, Billy Stevens from Billy Go wrote this testimonial. Here's a link back to your site. Those are great resources. And then reaching out to any agency who can help you get in contact with any industry related magazines, blogs, etc., being able to write content for them, any citywide pages, you know, the top 10 in this city, top 3 in this city, best rated in this city. Those are all great resources as well to get quality local links. But the quality of the links is more important than the quantity of the links that you're generating for your business.
I'm looking at something here and you see on the
Mhm.
very top domain overview, worldwide, US, UK, Germany, you see the distribution by country. I don't think we need to go through what that means, but should a person be looking at worldwide or should a person be looking at just the US?
I usually have it just as default set to worldwide, unless I'm seeing like specific countries that are dominating. But I like to see just in general, where is it that we're ranking anywhere in the world, and then where is it that we're ranking locally? And you can see that right here in the distribution by country. Typically, the country that you're in is going to be showing up next. These numbers are really not going to change based on whether you're clicking worldwide or your country. The number that is going to change is the amount of keywords that you're ranking for. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Sweet. The organic traffic on this is just a complete estimate. It's basing it off of the keywords that you're ranking for and the average amount of search volume that there is for those keywords. And then based on that, the clicks and the percentages of clicks to each search result, SEMRush is coming up with an estimate as to how much traffic might be coming through to your website. If you want to see your actual number, have your Google Analytics report. It's free. Make sure you have Google Analytics connect to your website. The organic keywords. The important thing, and a question that I often get here is, I want to be ranking for the things that matter. AC repair near me, drain cleaning near me, tankless water heater near me, panel changeout near me, EV charger near me, things like that. All important, all relevant. Yes, absolutely. You need to be ranking for all of them. The other keywords, the national keywords like slab leak repair, there's no location that's tied to this. Installing a water heater, there's no location that's tied to that. These are the branded ones, Billy Go Plumbing, right? Nice to see those numbers. The reason why I like seeing those numbers is because I want to see those numbers increase over time, because that means more people are searching for my brand name versus a service. So I think all of that is important. But looking at some of the informational keywords, how to install a water heater, right? And the article itself is why you shouldn't install a water heater yourself. That's the blog from Billy Go here. A great blog, great piece of content, putting out information for a consumer, but they happen to be ranking really high for how to install a water heater. Those types of keywords are going to show up across the country. So you might ask, well, why is that relevant for me? If I'm trying to get more calls in Boston or in Florida, why would I want to show up to someone in Montana? Well, what that does is it's showing your relevance and your expertise to Google, so that you will show up more frequently when someone searches for AC repair near me or plumber near me. So having those extra pieces of content on your website, the blogs on your website, that is purely informational. Yes, it's not going to drive a lot of revenue to your business directly, but the indirect revenue that it's going to send to your business will be exponentially greater because of it.
Perfect.
So putting in your domain into one of these resources like SEMRush, it's going to allow you to take a look at how is it that we're showing up and what is it that we're showing up for. For us, when we're tracking keywords for a client, we're tracking the transactional keywords, and that's what we're sending them because we know that's what they care about. When we look at any of these tools and we do monitor these, we want to see where are those informational keywords that we're showing up for, where are those blogs that we're showing up for, because that's going to help us build those local search results as well. All Clear right. as mud?
Yeah.
All right.
You want to keep going on this, or we good to move on to the last topic?
No. Yeah, no, I think we can move on.
All right, cool.
I don't want to.
So goal alignment, right? And I know we're coming up near the top of the hour here, so we want to obviously be cognizant and cautious of your guys' and aware of your time from being on this webinar as well. So taking a look at goal alignment, and I think we just go straight into this one here. I mean, aligning your business objectives with SEO strategies. We've kind of already talked a lot about that already and having this continuity in here, but this is the one that I really want to get into, setting realistic and achievable SEO goals. When you look at a lot of times, people will, how long does it take me to rank this? How long will I start to see results? What is going to happen here? When am I going to do this? What's going to matter? When is my phone going to start to ring from all this work that you've been doing on the SEO side of things? All these things matter. So realistic and achievable SEO goals.
This is a doozy, and this is where it's important to understand, I think, your call volume goals first and foremost, and your sales goals that you have. Do you have them broken down by month? Have you looked at year over year data to see what percentage of calls you took in February of 2023 and February of 2022, and what percentage of your annual calls were in that month? And then now you can take a proper forecast into 2024 to say how many calls can we expect this month. You're always going to get those random influxes of weather. We just saw a massive cold rush that hit across the nation, all of Canada and the US. Was it 2 weeks ago?
Something like that.
Those kinds of things happen, and you need to be able to adjust. And we've got a great podcast that we just did yesterday with the guys from TR Miller and ProBook. And we were talking about this exact thing and how you can balance your outbound campaigns where you're trying to get maintenance calls on the board and trying to be proactive with the reactionary adjustments to weather. Because when we're in a home service business, weather is always going to be a part of it. Pipes are going to freeze. Air conditioners are going to stop working. Furnaces are going to stop working. And we need to be able to adjust accordingly for those. So it starts with the calls. And then from there, looking at search volume, and we can break down how many calls we can generate if we're ranking in certain positions. And then it's looking at how can we supplement or augment with outbound campaigns, and looking at paid ads as a potential augmentation as well.
Perfect. Great information too, right? Again, the short answer is it depends, right? That goes right back to the very beginning, as it really does, because you look at search volume. Okay, well, if you're in an area where your population is 20,000 versus 2 million versus 7 million, well, okay, what is it going to look like in terms of being able to go through that? I know the analogy that one of our friends uses quite a bit is it's like a NASCAR, right? Or a race around the track, right? And everybody's going in the same direction. Well, if somebody's out there before you and they're already running laps, you can still have the best, well-tuned, well-oiled, fastest car out on the track. But no matter what, they're always going to be ahead of you. Now you're going to start passing him. You're going to start passing him. You're going to start catching him, and you're going to start catching him. And eventually you will. But it takes that time depending on how long they've been out there for. So it also depends on when you've started your SEO as well, to say, okay, well, I'm brand new. I'm coming into this from January 25th of 2024. Well, somebody else that's been around for 3 years, you're going to take a little bit longer to catch them. But if you have the right tools, the right company, the right everything going in to hit all of those signals, you're going to catch them quicker.
Indubitably.
All right, some key takeaways, tools and resources. You can hit us up on our blog, onpurposemedia.ca/blogs. If you wanted a handout, by the way, we actually have one coming out here for you. It might be, we'll be updating it. So if you're on this live, give it a day or so to be able to text this number. But if you want it now, you can always text it again and get the updated slides. So you text SEO handout to 855-968-4116. And automatically, through the wild word of technology, you get a copy of a handout from us to you, talking about some of these things. And we'll also summarize some of the key takeaways as well from that. So text SEO handout to 855-968-4116. I do not think it is case sensitive, but do please put a space between the SEO and the handout, because that's going to be needed. So last but certainly not least, thank you for joining us. Without you tuning in, without you listening, we're doing this for you, to give you more value, to give you more information on strategic SEO success for you and your business coming up in 2024. Right. So thank you for taking the time out of your day to watch or listen, if you're listening to this later on. If you are curious about what I was talking about earlier, SEO rankings and user experience, and how does that work and how does that go hand in hand? How do you hit your on-page signals in those behavioral aspects from those rankings that we talked about earlier? Our next webinar is going to be your guide to website optimizations, coming at you on February 22nd, 12 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. That's 11 a.m. Pacific. That's 1 p.m. Central. That's 2 p.m. Eastern. I don't know what time that is in Newfoundland. 3:30.
3.5. Yeah.
Yeah, 3.5, 3:30. They got one of those weird time zones. So be sure to join us on February 22nd for that webinar.
And I'll also say this as well, and this was Terry commenting, watching you two reminds me of a Japanese translation. And a lot of the terms that are used in marketing can come off as hieroglyphics at times when you're looking at some of your SEO reports or PPC reports. Even when you're looking at Service Titan or House Call Pro, some of the data that they spit out can look like hieroglyphics sometimes. It's important to start by understanding, hey, ignorance is not bliss, and I need to have a base level understanding of what, and come to your marketing company with curiosity and just ask a lot of questions. whatever it is that you want information on, ask it. And if it's something that's irrelevant, hopefully they've got the gumption to tell you, hey, you don't need to worry about this part. Instead, what you should focus on is this, because this is an indicating factor of that. And if that's the issue, we're going to dive into it. We're going to fix it. Right. But at least you have that open communication to go back and forth so that you can truly understand what it is that's going on in your business. Right. We walked through some of these reports and maybe I went a little too detailed and I should have told Thad, cut me off if it gets boring. But the reality is we want you contractors to have a great understanding of what it is that's happening for your SEO, for your Google ads, for your everything digital marketing, so that you can make the best decisions for yourselves and you can grow. Because the reason we started this business, we were tired of seeing companies that were just not being transparent and honest and doing what was right for customers. I imagine that's why you started your home service business. That's why we do this kind of stuff. So ask questions, reach out, whether it's us or in the Facebook groups, etc. Just, there is no such thing as a stupid question. Only the question that didn't get asked is the stupid question. So
correct. And the other part too is look, you're also running a business. And there's going to be people on your team that you might delegate out to handle these conversations as well. They might understand some of the technical aspects of Evan's boring, over the top information. No, it actually wasn't boring and over the top. So, but you think about that, right? Is if you have somebody else on your team that is dedicated to be able to working with your marketing company, making sure that you have a dialogue back and forth with each other, right? Not just, oh no, and you come in out of nowhere and have a conversation with somebody, or if you don't understand it, asking those questions from them to be able to help understand that with you, right? That's another important piece of the puzzle, right? If somebody else is working with your marketing company and they're doing that and they're handling that and they're handling that with proficiency, at the end of the day, the biggest thing that matters here for you, getting calls on the board, right? Is your job board full? Now, it's not all just on a marketing company, by the way. If you run your business solely on marketed leads, you might be in trouble coming in 2024, right? So you have to also adapt and pivot your own business as well, and not just rely on the marketing company, but also looking internally too. And this doesn't mean that I'm trying to fluff this off to, if something happened in your business, that it's not your marketing company's fault. Absolutely not. They need to be doing things to be able to help you position yourself better for what's coming, but you also have to do some things to be able to make that phone work and ring on your end, on the user experience side of things as well. By the way, if you don't have anybody working on this with your marketing company and you feel that your marketing company is going over the top with you, and you're just, hey, you know what, I want a second opinion, I want to reach out, I just want to have a conversation, can you just look and tell me if they're doing a good job or not? This is no obligation, no strings attached. Hit us up. We'll do onpurposemedia.ca/marketing-analysis. We'll go through and we'll give you a higher level and a more detailed run through, and at the end of the day, tell you if they're doing it or if they're not, right? So do pay attention to that. So I guess that would be a wrap in our webinar today. So thank you for tuning in. And of course, until next time.
cheers.
No alcohol today, but hey, I still figured we needed to say
I think there will be here in about 5 minutes. So
sounds good. Well, until next time, folks, take care. If you like what you heard today, you can hit us up and get a marketing analysis done on your business to know if you're on pace or if you're off pace. Head on to the link that's on your screen, onpurposemedia.ca/marketing-analysis. Book a time with us, and we'll go over and give you all of the details. No obligations, by the way, on whether your marketing is on point or whether it's not. Of course, we also want to see you on our socials. We got our Facebook, we got our Instagram, we got our Threads, we got our TikTok. Give us a follow.